Welcome back to another episode of Hoot and Poop. So in today's video, I will be talking to you about ClearPoint Neuro. So ClearPoint Neuro, basically I've covered them, quite extensively in my previous few videos, which I will share the link in the description as well as the small little screen there. So in today's video, what I'm going to do is that, I will be talking to you guys about the latest earnings. I will dissect out I will go through what I have dissected out from the earning transcript so that all of us can learn from it and to see if you can gather some information from it. Okay, so a quick little recap. All right, ClearPoint Neuro, they have 4 pillars of growth. Okay, so basically they already stated here the first pillar of growth, it's the functional neuro navigation. So remember, the first pillar is navigation. The second pillar, which is the drugs and biology delivery. So just remember, it's the drugs, right? Delivering of drugs to the brain. The third one is therapy and access products. So it's just therapy products, it's just basically products. And the fourth one is achieving global scale. So I will try my best to go through as in-depth as possible for all of these 4 pillars based on the earning transcript. So the first thing is that we talk about the navigation portion. So I have already colored marked my transcript. So the yellow color represents the navigations, and for now the orange represents the drugs delivery. So for the navigation portion, okay, they said that they have added new partners, both for the medical navigation as well as the bio and drug delivery portfolio. So each of them basically have a addressable market of more than 1 billion. So if you think about it, if I combine bio drugs as well as the medical partners, I would probably have about 2 billion addressable market on a yearly basis. So this is what they say. Okay, so let's go straight into a little bit of the financials. So basically they said that for this quarter, which is third quarter 2021, they have about revenue about 4.6 million, which is a good 30% increase from last year. If you ask me whether if 30% is good or bad, generally speaking, for medical devices, which is for ClearPoint Neuro, which is growing, 30% I think is pretty low pretty much on the low side. But because they are still in a budding stage where they are growing, they are depending on their partners, so I think it's still all right for now. Okay, but if you ask me honestly speaking, I think it's pretty low compared to a lot of other companies. Okay, so now let's look at the first portion, which is the navigation system. Okay, so they said the navigation revenue grows about 17%, whereas the biology drugs delivery goes about 39% year on year. All right, sales is same as revenue, and they also had an increase in terms of the investment from their new and existing partners, etc. Now the green color depicts the equipment revenue, which is the therapy equipment. So it grew about 78%. Okay, it's quite good. Yep, so that's about it. So overall, their gross margin, it's about 68%. I think it's pretty okay. Their R&D increased about 130%. I'm pretty fine because basically a medical company, you actually need a lot of R&Ds to improve, and especially now you're still at the budding stage, it is really pumping in money for R&D. So they also explained to say that this R&Ds, this increase, basically comes from headcount, investment into product development. Yeah, so pretty much about it. Now, sales and marketing, okay, increased about 22%. I think it's pretty okay. It's not, I don't expect them to pump up this for now that much compared to R&D. That's how I generally see it. Yeah, so basically these are quite standard stuff. G&A increased about 1.2 mil. I think it's okay, fine. Nothing out of the norm yet. A bit more, but yeah. So because of increased personnel costs and share-based compensation, but yeah, that's pretty much about it. They also said that they have hired 20 new employees, which is good because the more employees that ClearPoint Neuro hires, or rather growth company hires, it means to say that the company is growing. So one good way to track about how your company is performing is also based on the number of employees they hired on the quarter-to-quarter basis, put it this way. Because if you think about it, if they don't hire people, that means to say everybody is self-sustaining, they are not really that growing much, they're just probably surviving. But if a company is aggressively hiring, and if you keep And if the workload don't increase as a whole, it doesn't make sense to hire the employees, right? The problem where you have hire employees because you want to increase, you are able to increase your workload intake for the whole company as it is. So that's why this is what I look at it. Okay. So if you look at it, the cash, basically they said that they have a cash equivalent of 57.7 million as compared to 20 million. So they have more cash this year. So I think it's pretty okay. Yeah. Okay. So now that's basically a very quick summary of, all the financials and so on. So now this is the part where I really want to go through with you guys. I'll try my best to go through step by step. So just remember, yellow color means navigation. So in total, okay, for this quarter, the third quarter itself, which comprises of July, August, and September, okay, they have supported about 227 cases. Okay, kind of declined slightly versus second quarter last year, but they do see disposable purchasing increasing to replenish the inventory. So what does it mean? It just perhaps means to say that existing how to put it, existing partners perhaps are purchasing more of this disposables, okay, to stock up for it, because the reason why they need to stock up, okay, this is the thing. The reason why they perhaps need to stock up is because the partners expect to have more and more cases as down the road. But the reason, then the next question is, why is there a decline? So now this decline perhaps could be because of COVID, because with COVID, everybody's focusing on treating the COVIDs of all their patients and reducing less efforts in terms of this trial. So this is potentially one of the reason, and they have also explained to say that did impact the procedures of about 20% of our hospitals. So perhaps this is one of the reason. Okay. Now I'm not going through all the details here. You can go and read that. So they also mentioned that they have obtain FDA clearances for their smart frame array, which is part of their navigation system. So something important that you need to know is that for whatever medical devices, medical equipment, medical drugs and stuff, you always need FDA clearances. So the fact that once you obtain the FDA clearances, okay, it means to say that you are able to use them freely. Okay, so this is something very important. Okay, so they also say that they'll continue their limited market release throughout the second half of this year, as well as on track to have full release of 2022. So this, if we were to track them based on the last quarter's earnings transcript, this is basically say the same thing as well. So this basically just tells me it's on track. Later I'll show you guys a comparison of all the whole thing. Okay, now moving on, the next part of the another equipment for the navigation is BCI. So basically they had deals with BlackRock, okay, on the BCI, all right? And they also said that, there is a huge potential on BCI for both the medical and communication purposes, okay? And there are a lot of, investments that's putting in for this point here. So how does it work? Is that basically ClearPoint Neuro and BlackRock, they collaborate to incorporate BCI into ClearPoint Neuro, vice versa. Okay, so what does it mean? They said that, how does this whole thing works in roughly is that basically they just place the BCI at a targeted area, okay, instead of an infusion granula. So, but it's basically similar. Okay, and then they mentioned, BCI applications, the surgery itself is designed to take place in the operating room. So basically being able to operate in the operating room, okay, this adds on to an area that they are focused on. Okay. So it's not, so this allows, okay, so with BCI, that it allows, ClearPoint Neuro to move into the operating room, crossover into the crossover technology for ClearPoint Neuro into the operating room. And if we were to add up all the potential addressable market with BCI and allowing ClearPoint to move into the operating room, okay, so basically, both in the MRI operating room, okay, including the deep brain stimulation navigation, BCI, laser, everything is about 1 billion. So this goes in line with what he said in the first few paragraphs. So how does it work? So currently, okay, when you take your MRIs at MRI place and after you move into the operating room, it's 2 different areas. So what this whole paragraph is trying to tell you is that, without BCI, okay, ClearPoint Neuro, it's basically to be done, can be done in the MRI place, okay, where they take the MRI and they can just insert the medical stuff there or whatsoever. But with BCI, they are allowing ClearPoint Neuro to move into the operating room concurrently and to do the operation. So this is something that it allows flexibility to ClearPoint. Okay. Now the second driver, which is the drugs and biologic delivery, okay, they have mentioned that they have added, okay, about 40 individual partners, okay, up from 35 a quarter ago. That means they've added 5 new partners, okay. They also said that, the initial commercial gene therapy approval for Neuro could take place in 2022, which is next year. And then basically this is in line with what they have been talking about. Okay, so generally that's how it goes. Now, for the third part, which is the therapeutic products, which is just basically product, I use green to demark them. Okay, basically this whole paragraph just explained to say that they have some clinical partnership at Paris a few years ago, which was announced on news. So generally that's about it. They have also an agreement with Adior, which is a German-based company. Yeah, so basically this is what we get. And they also mentioned, okay, to say that basically the whole portfolio of these therapeutic products is that basically they say that they recently just gained FDA clearances earlier this year, and they expect training and limited market release activities to begin the 4th quarter this year, with a full market release next year. With this is basically on the power drills that we're talking about, the Adior power drill. Okay, basically that's nothing much about it. It's not it's not something that's very surprising, because they have already talked about it, quite a fair bit of it. In terms of achieving global scale, which is the 4th pillar, they mark as blue color. Nothing really much, because what's important is that in order for them to grow, they need to achieve global scale. So when I read through this, I don't think there's anything that's special that I want to highlight to you guys. Okay, now, but hold on, later I will go through the rest of it. Now, if you look at it, right, the full year revenue, they said that it's between 16 to 17.5, is basically about 900 to 1,000 cases covered by our medical team. So let's see next quarter whether are they able to cumulative full year, will they able to hit 16 to 17.5 in terms of the revenue. Okay, so after every earnings call where the managements talk about a prepared script, they will come with a Q&A sessions where participants will just throw whatever questions they have to the management, and the management kind of got to answer on the spot. Okay, so for example, this management, okay, this question they pose to say that what's the basically if you look at the revenue, look at the results, okay, and also the 4th quarter revenue, basically based on their guidance, okay, the management said that you assume the revenue is about 4 to 5.5 for the rest of the year or in the 4th quarter. So basically that's nothing much, simple as that. However, okay, there's also other questions that ask about 2022, what's the company growth profile like, right? So they mentioned for the neuro, for the functional neurosurgery, okay, they say that there's a pent-up demand. Okay, so they do expect the placement to start to accelerate here in the 4th quarter throughout 2022. And also they said that they have added 15 partnerships this year. Okay, so if all these partners were to start to tap onto neurosurgery, this whole thing will kick off fast. That's for the neurosurgery. Now, in terms of the devices, okay, they said laser system in the second. They said that they based on their own timeline, which is intact, same. Okay, they said that the laser system expects in the second half of next year, we expect to start seeing first sales next year. And their partnership with Adior, okay, which is much excited about, which Adior is the one in Germany. They say you should be able to start seeing sales in 2022. So if you talk about it, right, in terms of the third arm, which is the devices, in 2022, we should be able to see laser system as well as Adior starts to have customers and sales, okay, which will boost their revenue. Okay, now there are also questions to ask about, how about the FDA approval of their partners, because this is something very important. So remember the second arm, which is drug delivery. So drug delivery is that whatever, regardless is drug, medical equipment, devices, everything needs FDA's approval. So for the drugs delivery, ClearPoint Neuro basically relies a lot on their partnership, because ClearPoint Neuro is basically providing the device itself, but the drugs depends on their partners. So if you look at it, right, they said, so they were asking, so there was a question asked, in 2022, what do you think of the FDA approval potential? So Joseph, he said that 2 to 3 could fall into the category of what they described, which is perhaps potential FDA approval. Okay, so basically there are 3 indications that are potential ones. He believes PTC is the most matured. Means to say PTC is the forerunner to get the FDA approval. Okay, they also said that, you know, we could have more than have them on track for 2022 FDA clearances. It's also likely that they could also go for, you know, the Europe or CE mark clearances in 2022 ahead of FDA's clearance. So FDA is only in the US, but in order to use in Europe, they also need to go through a CE mark or the European clearances as well. So basically, what we need to track is that by 2022, their drugs partnership must have some form of getting clearances by both FDA as well as the European clearances based on what Joseph has said. Okay, now another question, you know, asked about the laser ablation cases about 2x or 3x of revenue opportunity, and you know, Joseph said, you know, he said that laser ablation procedure or the overall market seems to be growing a bit faster than DBS today. Okay, this is also mentioned to say that, you know, market seems to be growing anywhere between 15 to 20% plus versus the DBS is close to the 5 to 10% range. So basically what it means is that DBS is growing about 5 to 10%, but laser ablation is growing about 15 to 20%. So he did not say that, you know, 2x, 3x is not possible. So I would think that, you know, this is possible, that there is a possibility to have that 2 times or 3 times in terms of revenue coming from laser ablation. Okay, now looking about Europe, another person asked, you know, how about the expansion to Europe, etc. Okay, no, what Joseph said, you know, is that he don't want to just you know, go into different countries. He really want to focus on to promote these devices into the center of excellence. So they said maybe about 2 to 3 countries, which is where their direction they're going to, and by end of next year, okay, they have about 5 to 10 installations across Europe and Israel. So basically, that's how it is. Nothing really fantastic in terms of the fourth arm on the global scale. So basically, this is the whole dissecting of you know, the ClearPoint Neuro what's it called, the call. So now I will move on to the portion which is on the tracking list that I tracked. So now back to the tracking list that we looked at it, I actually did not track on the global scale. I just tracked the 3 arms, which is the navigation, the drugs delivery, as well as the devices. So in terms of the navigation, let me zoom in a bit. Okay, we can see that basically all this, all right, on this part here were being said during the second quarter earnings, and this part here has been said, oh sorry, this is third quarter, all right? So if you look at, so the reason why we as investors, we need to track all this is because we want to make sure that whatever the management say, right, is consistent throughout the whole quarters and it's not smoking us or whatsoever, so that we know whether if they're progressing as what they say or they are not. Okay, so basically for the navigation portion, as what I've extracted, okay, for the smart frame array, the ClearPoint 2.1 Maestro, as well as the rest of the portion, okay, you can see that, you know, they are on track to what he said, meaning to say that we will probably see a more limited released announcement come the fourth quarter, because the second half 2021, but of course the full release is next year. ClearPoint Neuro 2.1, the first case is next year, and the orchestra is 2023. Now for the smart frame BCI, in the second quarter earnings, they said that, you know, they will announce more about it. But in the third quarter, they said that, you know, they are able to, you know, integrate this BCI into surgery workflow, which I have talked about. Okay, with accumulative all the other devices, everything combined together, the TAM is about 1 billion. So that's what Joseph said. Now, for the biology and drug delivery, okay, in terms of partnership, they had 35 partners in the second quarter, but they have 40 in the third quarter. Now, for the gene therapies, okay, basically nothing have changed. All the FDA's approval, all these are still on track for 2022. Okay, perhaps the only one that we need to know is that, you know, this includes FDA as well as European approval. Now for the devices, okay, for the laser ablation system, the biopsy platform, all this, it's still on track, still similar. Nothing really out of the norm. Okay, so they also said that the Adore surgical drill, basically it's also on track. They say that, you know, by the fourth quarter, by this upcoming quarter, they will have some limited release, and by first half of next year will be full release. And also the Adore MRI, the differences is that, you know, they said sales will come in 2022. Okay, so in general, all right, my final thoughts on this whole ClearPoint Neuro this quarter is that there's nothing surprising, there's nothing out of the norm. Everything is still back based on whatever they have mentioned about. So in the pipeline, there's no slowdown, there is no huge progress, if I were to put it this way. So if you ask my honest thought, I felt that it's pretty much okay, because there's no surprises, which is understandable. Of course, I do hope to see faster, take place, faster progressions, but it does take time. Medical devices does take time, so we shall wait and see, and hopefully by the fourth quarter we will have more improvement. So why we need to track by the fourth quarter is that we need them to talk about smart film array, okay, because they said there's a limited release, okay. They also need to track on the gene therapy where I want to see there's an increased enrollment, all right, by the fourth quarter, because they said second half. The laser elevation, I want them to make sure that they submit to the FDA, as well as the dual surgical drill. I want them to have talk about the some of the limited release. So all this we shall wait for the fourth quarter, which is perhaps the result will be out by January or February, around this period time. All right, so I hope you guys have understand this whole ClearPoint Neuro portion. So generally, as investor, we need to track in terms of their earnings transcript. We need to know what are they doing about, and if they're on track or if they're off track. So this is something that we need to know as an investor. Okay, so I hope you have a clear understanding on this point here. So so please like and subscribe to my video, and I'll see you in my next video. Invest safe.